Hi. Hello. Okay. I wish that I had one of those boards like the take 47. Hi. That's way happier than I have felt this week. Um, but I'm happy to, get on here and talk to you. I have tried to make a video. This really is probably like my 12th attempt to make this video. I cannot seem to find the right words about this week and the election. So I'm just, like so many people, I'm so incredibly disappointed. Disappointed. That's such a weak word for what I really am. Um, Angry would probably be the better word. So, yeah, and that's probably all I'm gonna say about it. Right now, anyway, I'm gonna talk about books. I have been wanting to get up and make a video for a while. I wanted to do a 10 before the end video. I wanted to do a nonfiction November pile of possibilities video. And those didn't happen. I have a tag video that I wanted to do that hasn't happened because I have been sick. And so, yeah, coughing and sneezing and all of the fun stuff. So I didn't get the videos done. So here we are. And it is what? It's November 9th. Um, and reading, I just haven't had October was not the best reading month. I only read 2 books, but they were both really good books. And then I also have already read 1 book for nonfiction November. So I guess that I'll just kind of get into it. I don't know. Does that sound good? Um, what other non-bookish things to say? I went to the what they're calling it the H Museum now. It used to be the Hermitage, Amsterdam, and I went to that on Tuesday with a friend to see the Kandinsky exhibit, and that was really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that. We went in the morning. I went in the morning before work, and I forget how, I live in this city full of museums, and I just don't take the advantage of it that I should. I did before COVID, but since COVID, I just haven't done it. So, uh, excuse me, it was great to get out and do that and see some art. And I love Vasily Kandinsky. So that was great. Uh, Reading October. I only read 2 books. I only read 2 books in October. I mean, that's not that common for me. I mean, I don't read a lot. I'm usually like 5 books a month. That's usually my pace. Um, but I just had the hardest time getting into anything. Uh, and there's a lot behind that I guess I could talk about in another video. Partially, I was just really struggling with you guys know that I've been trying to write a novel, and I finally just decided that the novel that I was working on, I was going to quit working on it because I just could not make it work. I just couldn't make it work. And it was really a great weight lifted to make that decision and to say, I'm just not gonna do this anymore. Because, first I thought, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna focus on reading, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna kind of open my mind, and I'm gonna think about, what else I could write, or just sort of let ideas come to me, and, keep kind of doing some writing in the mornings, just writing exercises or just doing, kind of free writing. And then the next thing I knew, like I figured out, I figured out what I wanted to work on. And one of the things that I was doing with the book that I had been working on was trying to read like a lot of contemporary books that I thought would be what they call comps, like, this would be the market comp for my book. And how to say this, like, I realized that I was doing that, and then I was also trying to I felt like I was trying to follow a formula. And it was kind of deadening. It was like, oh, this is not working. And it's funny because I actually then was like reading a newsletter uh, put out by a pretty famous, Jennifer Weiner. It's Jennifer Weiner. I was reading a newsletter that she puts out, and she was talking about helping a friend of hers with her new novel. And that, her friend was trying to like figure out this idea that she had. And, she kind of had kind of an amorphous kind of thing, and she was trying to put it into words. And, she was trying to come up with the pitch. She hasn't written the book yet, but she was trying to think of what the pitch would be. And, okay, well, thinking, why would you have a pitch for something that you haven't even like really explored yet? And then in this blog or this newsletter, she said one of the things that they sat down and did is they sat down and started to say to themselves, okay, well, all right, what do readers want? What do readers want? What do my readers want? And, it just struck me in the moment that that's exactly what I had been doing with my attempt. Was I was trying to think, what do readers want? What do they want? And, I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you're actually sitting down to write a book, to write a story. You have to be thinking about only the story. And I was thinking also about how many books I've picked up lately and put back down because they feel almost like they're following a formula, or like, they feel, I don't want to say predictable, but maybe kind of predictable. And I wonder if any of you have been noticing this also. Because it's just disappointing. And so I'm going to this in a roundabout way. Because the same, like this like within a couple of days, I also then read an interview with the writer Alice McDermott. And I had just finished her novel, Absolution. And I looked everywhere for a copy of this with the blue cover, and I could not find one. Not even online, unless I went to like, excuse me, like Blackwell's. But I just I just bought this locally. I just went to the bookstore and bought it. And because I like the blue cover better. Anyway, I was reading an interview with Alice McDermott about this book, and she says, yeah, I don't think about what readers want. I think about the story I want to tell, and the story I feel compelled to tell, and then I try to just make that the best thing I can. I'm trying to figure out what's happening and who these characters are. And it has to matter to me first, not to the readers. And uh, I liked that. I really appreciated that. I'll talk about the book in a second. But on another, just kind of on another random note, it also made me think about Flannery O'Connor and in the book Mystery and Manners. She has an essay about students and the teaching of literature, and she says in this in this essay, that we shouldn't be consulting students on what it is that they want to learn, or what their opinion is. Like, what is it that you think that you want to read or to learn, because their opinions are being formed. They're still learning how to form an opinion. And so really the goal of teaching literature is to teach them how to think critically about books, whether they wanted to read them or not. And I don't know. I mean, I guess there can be an argument made that if you want people to read, then you should try to give them what they want. You should try to, you know, put a little sugar on it, I guess. I don't know. But funny thing, I mean, it all in a weird way kind of goes back to the ability to think critically about something. And not just think, well, this is going to go down easy. It's going to be, I'm going to get the inciting incident on page 10, and it's going to have all the characters that I expect, and they're all going to behave in ways that I expect and like. And it's going to be, my expectations for the story are always going to be fulfilled exactly the way I want them to be. And yeah, I don't know. I'm probably just rambling now, but it just felt like a weird moment of kismet. But I think, at least for me, I'm sure that somebody like Dickens, who was writing novels in serialization and in publications and in things that had to be, you wanted to sell, you basically are selling papers, right? Where these excuse me, stories are being published. uh, uh, so of course, I mean, it's not like that's never come into play even in classic literature. But I don't know. I don't think that, like, for example, I don't think Jane Austen was sitting around going, what do my readers want? What do they want? I think she had a purpose when she sat down to write the stories that she wanted to write. I don't know. Food for thought? Not food for thought? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Anyway, I I did read Absolution, and I really enjoyed this. I this is a book about a woman who is, well, it's not exactly an epistolary novel. It is a woman who is talking to, it seems sort of like it's in letter form, to the daughter of a woman that she knew in Vietnam. And she also knew the daughter in Vietnam, but the daughter, when she knew her in Vietnam, was a little girl. And this woman was in her early 20s, and she had gone to Vietnam in 1963 with her husband, who was an engineer. He was actually working for the CIA. And she talks about her time there. It seems as if, like, the structure of the novel is almost as if the daughter, whose name is Rainey, has written to this woman whose name is Trisha and asked about her mother. And so Trisha is sort of obliging and telling Rainey about her mother and their time in Vietnam and what she knows about her mother. And this is the light in here is just terrible. And so I'm gonna set that down. Uh, so it's really it's an interesting structure. It doesn't to me it didn't quite work because the first three-quarters of the book are Trisha telling this story of her time in Vietnam and knowing Rainey's mother, whose name is Charlene, and their relationship and the things that happened between them when they were in Vietnam. And then it very briefly moves over to Rainey as an adult and Rainey thinking about her mother, and then also Rainey meeting another person who happened to know her mother in Vietnam. A weird coincidence. And actually, the reason that she ends up writing to Trisha. And, excuse me. And then it goes back at the end to Trisha. And the book explores a lot about the Vietnam War, kind of from an unusual angle, because Trisha is really, this is before combat. Kennedy is still alive. It's still very much Camelot. Trisha and her husband are young and idealistic. They're Catholic. They feel they feel like it's sort of their duty to be there, or, well, the husband does. He feels it's sort of his duty to be there and to make sure that Diem actually is successful, because he, as the leader of Vietnam or South Vietnam, is Catholic, and that, there has to be that support there, and that it's really good for the world, and that it's going to help them hold communism at bay. And so there's the complexity there, and then there's the fact of the complexity of Trisha being a young wife. She's only been married for about a year. She's in her early 20s. She's been educated. She went to school and then got married, and now she's trying to figure out the word that she uses with Rainey is, she said, I wanted to be the best possible helpmeet to my husband that I could possibly be. And that very much means not questioning much and playing a certain type of role where she's, I wouldn't say subservient, but I would certainly say not being a bother and also trying to sort of get along and find her own way. And so Charlene, who is very self-assured and comes from a lot of money and comes from a place of sort of confidence and privilege, and her husband is also in the CIA, and she's been in Vietnam for a long time, and she sort of she knows the other wives. She's really sort of a leader among the wives. And then she also speaks fluent French, so she's able to converse with a lot of the Vietnamese people. She also knows some Vietnamese. And Charlene kind of sweeps Trisha into this scheme that she has going. And it's a scheme for good, but it really gets into the complexities of what were Americans doing there, and were they really helping or were they really hurting? Even before the war had really started, or before combat really began to ramp up. And essentially, Charlene sort of brings Trisha into this fold by, saying that Trisha has come up with this idea. They've got Rainey's Barbie doll, the daughter, and they decide to make her, the traditional Vietnamese áo dai, I think is how you say it. It's the long white tunics that they wear over pants. Um, and Charlene pulls in a young Vietnamese girl who works for another American woman and sort of gets her to start sewing these for Barbie dolls. And then Charlene happens to have this sister who works for Macy's in New York, who kind of manages to get things that, I don't know, fall off the truck and send them to Vietnam. And she sends her a load of Barbie dolls, and they make these outfits, and then they sell the Barbie dolls to the American families and to the GIs so that they can send them home. And then they take the money and they buy things for Vietnamese orphanages, hospitals, leper colonies, and bring them supplies, but also bring them fun things, toys, but also clothes, chocolate, other foods, cigarettes, what have you. Cigarettes aren't for the children, by the way. Uh, and so it really kind of gets into the complexity of like the black market in Vietnam and just the entanglement of what some of these people were doing, and how they were doing it. And you know, it's an interesting book because they have such idealism. Trisha has such idealism. It's in first person for her, and she really is. She's naive. She very much believes in her husband. And then there's a side story also where she's trying to start a family, and she really does want to have a family, and she does want to get pregnant on her own, and she has several failures there, and things ensue. So it was the piece where she moves away from Trisha and she moves back to Rainey. I just didn't. I don't know. The pieces in Vietnam and Trisha's point of view were so fascinating to me. Uh, but interestingly, like the today Trisha who's telling Rainey the story is in a lot of ways still the same girl. Uh, she's not. You can tell that she understands some things more deeply and she has some perspective, but what she wants to say and how she wants to say it, and she doesn't talk too much about what happened after they left Vietnam, and it's very clear in a way that's like that part of her life was over, and there was also some good reason for that part of her life to be put behind her. um but I kind of wanted more. I wanted a little bit more about that, and maybe her and thoughts about that, and thoughts about what her husband was doing there. Um, yeah, but I thought it was very well done. The writing is very good. Uh, I think this is. I think this is no. I have read Charming Billy. Charming Billy is the only other Alice McDermott that I've read. I have read a nonfiction book of hers that's called What About the Baby? Some thoughts on writing. I think it's some notes on writing fiction. I think, or the art, or some notes on the art of fiction. That's what it is. So that book is actually about writing and reading fiction and getting pulled into stories and how people tell stories. But she also reiterated in that book, I read that book about 3 years ago. And I picked it up again after I read that interview and after I read this, just to kind of look through it. And she again talks about it's my job to write the best story that I can. I'm not really interested in, I'm not interested in what readers want. I hope that I can tell the story I feel compelled to tell, and that story will find its readers, is basically what she says. So she's not saying who cares, she's not like that, but she just hopes that she's gonna pour out this thing, and it'll find readers. Anyway, I do recommend this if you are at all interested in Vietnam. I haven't read, I know there was another book out. I can't remember the name of it. By I think the author Kristen Hanna. Well, I'll put it up I'll look it up. That's about nurses in Vietnam. I was sort of interested in that just because I am really fascinated. I'm just fascinated by Vietnam in general. But I've also got some things on my TBR that, excuse me, are from the point of view of Vietnamese writers as well. Like one of the best books that I have found is The Sympathizer. Um, that's such a fantastic book. I haven't read the sequel to that book, and I haven't seen the HBO Max series, but that was that was a really fantastic and fascinating look at Vietnam. But yeah, uh, anyway, this video is going on a quite longer than I expected, and I haven't even talked to you about everything I wanted to talk about because I read another book in October that I think I'll just do a separate video on because that book was Mercy Street by Jennifer Haigh, and now I'm a Jennifer Haigh completist. I have read all of her novels. I've read all of her books, and she has a book coming out in April 2025 called Rabbit Moon that looks like it's going to be really good and very different from anything else that she's ever written. But I wanted to talk about her in general, uh, and talk about Mercy Street also in the context of her other books because she's one of my favorite writers, and I don't really see too many booktubers talking about her. I don't really see too many uh, people talking about her. And, she seems to do well critically, and she has won some awards and things. But, I think she deserves more attention. So I will probably just devote another video to her. Um, right now, oh, and then I'll just talk about my nonfiction November stuff probably when I wrap it up. But I read a book called Flam by Larry McMurtry. It's essays that he wrote in like the 60s, 70s, and maybe the early 80s about screenwriting and movie reviews and the state of the movies and the state of film and that kind of thing. There's also a really charming interview that he wrote about Diane Keaton. I enjoyed that. It was pretty good. I like to pick up his writing from time to time. It was a bit dated in some ways, but he had some interesting things to say about how books translate or don't to the screen. So yeah, I'll talk about that when I talk about that book in more depth. And right now, I am reading Caste by Isabel Wilkerson. This was already on my pile of possibilities for nonfiction November, and I finished the McMurtry book last weekend, and I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to read next. And then, we got the election results, and I already had this set up to read this month. The other thing I had actually started reading Larry McMurtry's biography. And I'm still going to read this, but I've got it set aside right now, and I'm reading this. Because I had this as my other book to read this month anyway, so here we are. And I'm like that far in. I read The Warmth of Other Suns in 2017 and was just absolutely blown away by the research, but also just the interviews that she did, and then the way she structured the narrative of that book and the stories that she told and the way she wrote about it, I just really loved. So I've had this book on my shelf since it was published in 2020, and it's just been languishing, and I just have been wanting to correct that for a long time, and now I am. So that's what I'm reading now. I'm also reading Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. I'm reading that on my Kindle. I like to read. I read like on my Kindle app on my phone. I like to do that before I go to bed at night. And this is more like my morning or daytime book. So yeah. So that's where I am. That's what's been going on. That's my blah blah blah. My blah 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 in bad lighting. So I will close and say, I hope that you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you're giving yourself lots of grace. I hope that you're taking walks. I hope that you're finding ways to clear your head and figure out, how to put one foot in front of the other, because I mean, ultimately, no matter what, that's what we all have to do, um, all the time anyway, I guess. So I am thinking about you all. I hope that you are well, and I would love to hear from you. Let me know what you've been reading. Um, let me know how you're doing, and I will see you guys again soon. Take care. Bye.